If you've ever found yourself chasing a loss, or spending more time and money than you can afford on gambling, then you might have a gambling problem. In a world full of temptation, it can be difficult to maintain control. And fighting addiction can be really tough for you and your loved ones. Gamban can remove temptation by blocking your devices from accessing gambling websites and apps, wherever you are in the world. Easy to install and non-intrusive, Gamban is a helpful tool for tackling gambling addiction. Gamban can help you get back on your feet and give you the time you need to enjoy the more important things in life.
Warning, this show may be triggering for anybody experiencing gambling-related harm. Please watch cautiously. We speak from our experiences only. Please seek professional help for a gambling addiction.
Hi everyone, I'm Christina, and this is the Bet-Free Life.
You didn't give your date. Through me.
Hi everyone, I'm Christina. I last placed a bet in March of 2021, and this is the Bet-Free Life.
And I'm Brian, and I haven't placed a bet since July of 2014. Christina, how do you stop gambling?
This is going to sound a little outside the box, but you stop gambling. And I know that that's like the most or the worst thing you can tell somebody to just stop, but that's the truth of it. It's how you stop is the real crutch of the thing, because everybody has a different story. For me, I hit my rock bottom, and I knew that if I continued to gamble, my life wouldn't exist anymore. Like, it already wasn't existing. And so for me, there was just something that last night that I placed a bet that flipped a switch in me. And I didn't want to gamble again.
I agree. You have to just stop, which is infuriating to say, but it's true. You have to stop. But it's more of like, how do you deal with stopping gambling? And how you deal with stopping gambling is you go to therapy and you go to Gamblers Anonymous meetings and you talk about it with other people and you find a hobby to do instead of gambling during that time frame. And then you sort of realize like, oh, I should make the rest of my life better too. And then you start eating healthier because you want a healthier lifestyle in general because you've stopped gambling. And then all of a sudden your money's come back into your accounts because you haven't been bleeding it out on gambling. So I think it's more about not just how you stop gambling, but how do you deal with stopping gambling? Because the stopping it's hard, right? Just walking away, especially not being able to do it one more time. Like if you just want to stop right now and not give yourself like, well, okay, I'm going to go one more time and then I'll stop. But if you just stop right now and walk away, it just starts to get better from here on out. As soon as you stop gambling, it starts to get better. And so that is sadly the thing you got to do is just stop.
And you got to do whatever it takes to do that. And throwing yourself into recovery is a good way to do it. Brian, you locked yourself away from the world to do it, right?
I locked myself away, just went to work and went home and then watched movies just to get through that time period of urges. Especially when you first, I don't know, did you have a lot of urges when you first stopped?
No.
Oh,
No, when I first stopped, I was so sick of it. Like I didn't want to gamble. I wanted to get better. So it's just like, I think for me, what I struggled with stepping into recovery, like It wasn't that I wanted to gamble. Now, I'm not saying I didn't have a few moments of like, it just like overwhelmed me, but no, I didn't want to gamble. What was overwhelming me was just the mess that I was escaping from. Now I had to face. That's what really kind of was the struggle for me, because stopping gambling for me, it's hard. It was hard, and I missed it. like in a way of like not urges to go, but in a way of like, this had been such a part of me for so long to not have it. It was like grieving a friend, a lost friend, or that toxic ex that, there were good things, but mostly bad. And that to me was the easier part compared to working recovery, facing the messes that I had created, the relationships I had ruined. That's the hard part. And I really threw myself into trying to fix those issues. And that's really kind of what I've been doing for the last year or so.
Yeah, I think I avoided my issues and I was just concentrating on stopping the gambling. I was just concerned with, I just need to not gamble. When I wake up in the morning, what's the one thing I need to do? Not gamble. I can do anything else. Like, that's what I told myself. I was like, I can do anything else I want. I can buy a new TV or whatever, PlayStation. I can go anywhere I want to go. I just can't go to a casino and I just can't gamble. That's the only thing I had to do to live. Was
you can buy
to
100
not
helicopters.
gamble. What's that?
Buy 100 helicopters.
That's right. Those little remote control helicopters. I did that at a time in my life at 2 when I stopped gambling. I bought way too many of those. And I stockpiled them in my basement. That's what gambling did to my brain. But it was so important just to not gamble, because gambling had created so much harm that I didn't care about fixing myself at the moment. I didn't care about what other problems I had. I just cared about not gambling. Just don't gamble. And so if I have to eat a chocolate cake that day in order to feel good and not gamble, then that's what I was going to do. It sucked. Like, that part sucks, but you get through it like anything else. You just get through it day by day. And then one day I left my room and I went back into the world, and I could be out in the world and not want to gamble. And that was nice.
Yeah. And that's the great thing about recovery, is that we get to make it our own. What works for some may not work for somebody else. Like some people will
Takes different strokes.
Exactly. And so sometimes just abstaining in the beginning is just what it's going to take. Other times it's like, you really got to start the work early on. For me, that was the case. Next question. How important do you think the 12 steps are in recovery and to stop gambling?
The 12 steps, as I understand, were derived from the AA 12 steps. And so they're good, like anything else, they're good guidelines to live by. But like you just said, different strokes for different folks. If you don't want to work a 12-step program, then don't. Stop gambling and try to see what it is that was making you gamble by looking inside and seeing if you're depressed or anxious or lonely, or you're just pissed at the world and so you're gambling. You got to look at all of that. And if that means a 12-step program, then great. And if it doesn't, so be it. Find a different way. Christina and I both found different ways of not necessarily going through a 12-step program. Not that we haven't been to meetings, but more of just working the program. I never really worked the program, which maybe is why I relapsed. I don't know. But this time around, I found a different way, which was the podcast. And so I used that as my meeting. And it's not a 12-step program by any means.
It's extremely helpful, though. The podcast has been a huge part of my recovery, along with many things. I do work a 12-step program. And I do have a sponsor, but I work the steps through a different type of book. It's not necessarily a GA book. And I work them at my own pace. And it's something that I'll probably rework over the next several years. But it's just like with anything, there's this day and age, there's so many different ways that you can find help, whether it's shows like this. There's a ton of YouTube shows, tons of different podcasts, different personalities on these podcasts. There's so many social media groups that you can be a part of, and you'll find tremendous support. Women groups are popping up. If you want to see support that way, that's amazing. So many wonderful connections, and staying connected has been Really important for me. And I think for probably anybody in recovery. Yeah. So what's next?
What do I do about my finances? I've dug a hole that I can't get out of.
Okay. For me, I had to start with like the basic necessities. I mean, I was somebody that really, really ruined myself financially gambling. And so for me, it was sitting down with my sister. It was looking at the things that needed to be taken care of immediately. You know, your home, your vehicles, insurance, gas, you know, utilities, those things that you need to maintain life. And so once I got, you know, a plan on getting all that caught up, then it was just like you started looking at everything else and prioritizing it as needed. And I personally created a snowball plan that has been working for me. But there are so many different ways to tackle your finances. We have an upcoming episode about a card called TrueLink. And it's a great card that you can bring somebody else in to help you manage your money. We'll go more into that when that episode comes out. There are debt consolidation plans, and there's also bankruptcy. So it's really just exploring the best option for you and what's going to help you maintain a healthy recovery. And really, a lot of that too is based on where you're at in your gambling addiction and recovery.
I was somebody who filed bankruptcy, and I would highly recommend it. I mean, if you're in that position where it's that far gone, just I would definitely recommend it. Though I should say, Christina and I are not financial advisors, and you should do what's best for you and yours. But as far as our experience, I filed bankruptcy, and it was what I needed at the right time. I let my car get why am I blanking on the word? Repoed. Thank you. And I just watched the movie Repo Man too. I don't know why this was not in my head. I let my car get repoed. They took it back as part of the bankruptcy. I ended up walking my last few weeks maybe a month or two that I lived in California. I ended up having to walk everywhere because my car had already been repoed. But the bleeding stops and the money comes back if you have a job, or wherever you're getting your gambling funds from, that must be some sort of job or assistance. And so the money comes back because you stop bleeding it out. You just have to call your debtors and explain that you don't have the money and put on a payment plan. And if that doesn't work, then you wait until it goes to collection. You call them and you say, I need to be put on a payment plan. There's a lot of things you can do if you just call the debtors and talk to them and let them know what you're trying to do. And I mean, the big part of that is once you stop gambling, the bleeding is stopped, and so money comes back.
Yeah, very much so. And you know, as overwhelming as it is, I actually started finding some relief in just working through it. Like I didn't do it all at once. It was definitely a process. And it was really helpful to have somebody else kind of there with me and kind of calm me down and say, look, we can work this, we can do this. But building a plan is going to be the best course of action for that, whatever that looks like for you. But, you know, just start tackling it, set yourself a goal of like even a short time a day to look at something and try and figure something out, whether it's making that phone call. You can also, I just want to say this while we're talking about finances, you can also call your banks. I know like Wells Fargo, Chase, Bank of America, they all have programs where you can turn your cards off and you can't use them in ATMs that are within casinos. There's some, they all have some kind of a network code or something. And so they're able to lock your cards to where you can't pull cash out of those ATMs. You can't use them in their casinos at all. So that's a great tool. And then, to help you with the financial side of things, if you don't have somebody that can help you guide your finances, I would do everything you can to block yourself financially from getting cash and those things. And Gamban, which is sponsored the Bet Free Life, great company, great app. download it to your phone. It will block all those online gambling sites. And that takes a whole nother level of pressure off. So those are some great tools to kind of help you rebuild that financial stability too. And then also, last but not least, financial coaching is a great tool too. Like, to kind of really understand, this is something I'm actually working through right now, because I've never had a good history of money ever. And kind of getting to the root of that, it's just like gambling is a symptom of a lot of internal stuff. So is like financial irresponsibility is similar to that too. So,
And turning over your finances to a relative or a partner or a parent or whatever.
yeah.
Also it works well for not gambling. It just,
Yes,
it's hard to get your head around it though, if you're not used to that.
it is. And I think there's a lot of resistance and turmoil, but it's really the most beneficial thing you can do is just, and it actually feels good to take that pressure off after years of like struggling with the cycle of it. It's actually nice when you've got somebody else that's kind of dealing with the responsibility of it for a minute, let you catch your breath, let you kind of settle into recovery. Which takes me to my next question. Did you experience the pink cloud?
Can you explain the pink cloud for everyone?
I can. I think this is a term more used in AA. And what it is it's kind of like when you first enter, this was my personal experience. And my therapist brought this up to me. When I first entered recovery, I was so gung-ho. Like, I mean, I just threw myself into reading about it, exploring, advocating for myself, doing meetings every day. You hear a lot of people say 90 meetings in 90 days. I don't think I was that extreme, but pretty close. And then I threw myself into social media and stuff like that. And you kind of have this high feeling, like it just felt so good. And then probably, I think I was maybe a little over 60 days. Those emotions went kaput. And I went into like, I call it like peaks and valleys, like the pink clouds, you're like high, you're up on the peak and things are starting to kind of like, as the money's coming back and you're kind of getting stuff figured out and you're feeling really great. And then it's just like, all of a sudden it's like, boom, I'm like, blah. I don't want to go to meetings. I don't really want to talk about it. I kind of go into this little dip of like, withdrawing a little bit. And so it's something that I see a lot when I talk to people in recovery. They're like, I'm just kind of feeling blah. Like, I talked myself out of going to a meeting. So the pink cloud is kind of that really like go getter, like I'm going to set the world on fire and I'm pissed off at the casinos and I'm going to burn them down kind of feeling.
I did not experience that. Mine was, this most recent time was a lot calmer. It was just slow because I went through I met with somebody. I got consultation for bankruptcy. And so because he was like, okay, we're going to do this, I was relieved. Like, I had bankruptcy relieved my recovery because then I didn't have to worry about all this debt and all. It would be gone. But mostly it was the debtors who were calling constantly. And once you start to file, they can't call you anymore. And that was a huge relief. But no pink cloud. I was more like, got to get into recovery again for good this time. No more gambling from good old Brian. And so, no, I didn't have that pink cloud. But I also wasn't involved in any group when I stopped gambling. So I didn't really have access to have the pink cloud. I wasn't going back to meetings. I was just sitting in my room watching movies, not gambling. I was doing the abstinence thing.
But did you find a high in anything else you did? Like, it doesn't have to be, that's how mine showed up. That's how mine manifested, was in recovery. And that's how but sometimes it can manifest in different ways. Like, you get enthusiastic, like maybe buying helicopters. Or
6 months later, I wrote a screenplay for a movie, and that got me going on a project pretty good. That was 6 months after I stopped, but I got really high about that because that was something I'd always wanted to do, and I finally did it. And who knew? It only took not gambling to do it, to get it done.
to find motivation again.
Yeah, so true.
It is.
Once it sort of cleared my head, then I was like, oh, I can use my brain again, and I can function and write this out. And I did. And it was really cool.
Yeah, for me, I remember experiencing kind of the lows, but I was so connected, because I was connected in the communities. I was building the Broke Girl Society and doing these podcasts, that it really kind of helped me work through those kind of, blah. That's the only way I can describe it. Just blah. Like nothing felt exciting. Nothing felt good. I was just doing good to get through the day, but it does pass, and you do start to feel better again. And I think with recovery, you have these periods of like long periods of doing good, doing all right, like staying on track. And then you're going to have these periods of just like that disconnect, that blah feeling, like not wanting to do the meetings, kind of burnout. But I think they get shorter. Like those periods get shorter. And the key to getting through those valleys or those periods is connection. Whether it's just reaching out to somebody on the phone, sending an email to somebody, messaging somebody in a group, just stay connected. And you'll, like, for me, it's everything, and how I get through those kind of times. And so that's kind of the advice I give people that I'm mentoring or talking with for that. What's next?
Last question. How do you stay away from getting complacent in your recovery?
That's a good question. And that's a question that a lot of people struggle with. Because as we know, complacency can lead back to relapse. Not all the time, but in most cases, I would say. It's kind of the same thing. Like complacency to me is kind of like burnout. And I think it's really about working a recovery and building a life that you don't want to escape from, whether it's outside of meetings. Like I don't want people to feel like recovery is this life sentence of meetings. Because it's so much more than that. It's more than just meetings. It's more about like really building a solid life of things that make you happy, things that make you passionate about. And so like everybody's journey is going to be different. So we can't compare recovery to everybody else's. Like it's just got to be our own individual recovery. And for me, everything I do on the advocacy side is I'm just so full of passion for it. But complacency, again, it's going to come back down to connection. It's going to come back down to really working on the areas in your life or those symptoms, that cause gambling. It's going to be working on those, whether you want to find a different job, paint your kitchen. Like it can be something so little that can spark something so big. So it's really just about being curious of what's next in life. And I think if you stay curious, I really think that can help either avoid complacency or work through complacency. Because I think we're all going to experience it. I have. So I think it's unrealistic to think we won't experience it. But I think if we stay curious about what's next, it can really keep us moving forward.
I experienced complacency and it led straight to a relapse. So I know what that is like. And it was just as simple. It didn't start like, I'm just going to stop going to meetings because I don't feel like it anymore. It was, I'm not going to go this week because I'm tired tonight. I don't feel like going tonight. And that led to 2 weeks, 3 weeks. And by the 4th week, I realized I'm not going back. And then I thought, well, I'll just do this on my own. I can do this on my own. No problem. I don't need a group of people to help me. And wouldn't you know it, within 6 months, I was gambling again. And I think I've had 3 big relapses in my 14 years of gambling and not gambling and trying not to gamble. And each time, like you start betting just more that next time. You just do more damage than you did the previous sort of time of gambling. And that was such a bummer, to just not only start gambling again, but just gambling way beyond what I had gambled previously in an attempt to just sort of win it all back, or some false thinking of I can win. Well, I got to win all my money back, because it's never coming back. And it's not that maybe I win, sure, but I'm never going to leave the casino. Never going to leave the casino. So that's why I know I don't need to gamble anymore. It's because I know that my winnings are capped. If I want, I don't have that right to. The winnings will never be enough, I guess is what I'm saying.
All your wins will be future losses.
There it is. And so once you figure that out, it's like, well, there's no point to gambling. It's a pointless act. And so once you get there, it just makes it easier to not gamble, to not be complacent, to work.
Yeah. Whenever I had my relapse or my slip or whatever it was just for 1 week, right? I was chasing loss. I did so much damage in that week. It was like a out of body experience. Like a manic episode. I went completely out of control. And I thought, going in, I'm like, it's been a while. I think I got this. I don't think I've ever felt like that in all my years of gambling, that I did the last week of gambling that led to my breakdown. And so I just caution anybody, especially if you've got some time away and you think that you can control it. It's a progressive disease. And, any future wins will be future losses, and even more.
Sleep tight, everybody. It was such a doom and gloom episode.
It was. It's not our normal, lighthearted episode, but that's okay.
They were good questions.
Yeah. These are questions that we get a lot from the people that reach out to us or that we see in the community. And we just wanted to kind of give you our take on it and see if anything helps.
I liked it. I like this format.
Yeah. Just keep trying. Keep trying. If you're still in the trenches, just keep trying. If something's not working, try something else. Try something else. Try something else. And you're always welcome to send us an email at thefetfreelife@gmail.com. Brian or I will get back to you. Probably me.
For Christina, I'm Brian. Thanks for watching. Talking helps.
It absolutely does.